everybody, and welcome to my kitchen on this cold but snowy day, or I should say also sunny day, which I'm very happy about. It's always nice to see the sun out there, isn't it? Today we are going to be making a wonderful addition to your menu, which is a gluten-free tortilla. I love these. My cooking is dairy-free and grain-free, so for a while I was really looking for something that would be a real satisfying substitute for the regular wheat tortillas, and I found it with this recipe. And the great part is it's very simple to make, very quick to make, and it only takes 4 ingredients. So today we're going to be working with cassava flour, with chickpea flour, and sweet potatoes, and just a little bit of salt. So just before we get started, I just want to explain to you that chickpea flour is nothing more than garbanzo beans. If you have a Vitamix, you can buy the dried garbanzo beans in a packet, and instead of cooking them, you can put them into the Vitamix and grind them down into flour. So you don't have to buy a package like this. Although this one from Bob's Red Mill is pretty good and it's very convenient. The other thing too is I'm using cassava flour, but you could use tapioca flour as well. And I did a little prep work so that I was ready to go with my sweet potatoes. So what I did with the sweet potatoes, just one sweet potato, I peeled it and I sliced it. And then I put it in a steamer, my steamer like this, and put them into the insert, the steamer insert, just like so. And you can see I just cut them flat like this. They're probably maybe about a ½ inch thick, and I let them steam for 20 minutes. I want them nice and soft because we're going to be mashing them into the batter. So we need a ½ cup of each of the cassava flour and the garbanzo flour. And I'm just going to put those into this big bowl here. And then I'm going to add a generous pinch of salt to that. So maybe about a quarter teaspoon is all you need. And I'm going to give that a quick stir. I'm just going to use actually my measuring cup here to quickly stir it. I am using cassava flour. Cassava flour is actually from yucca, so it's the ground up yucca, and it's actually the same thing as tapioca. Tapioca is just without the fiber. So when you're cooking with the cassava flour, you get the benefit of the fiber that's in there. And it's also has resistant starch, which is very good for our microbiome and good for our gut health. So it's actually a really good flour to be using. I got mine online. It's used a lot in South America, in Africa, and it's very easy to work with. And you can substitute it 1-for-1 for wheat flour. Also very good. So now I have my dry ingredients here. I'm going to add in my sweet potatoes. All right. Oops. Plop. Let's see if I can get these out. There we go. I'm going to tip this down, the camera down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. There we go. So you can use a fork now at this point to adjust. Let me just adjust my lighting here. All right. Sorry about that. I need an assistant, right? All right, so I'm going going to use a potato masher. And I'm just going to push and mash those sweet potatoes into the flour mixture that I have. So what's interesting is I'm using sweet potatoes today, but I've actually used butternut squash as well. So feel free to steam some butternut squash. I put in about maybe 2 cups of butternut squash to be the equivalent of 1 medium-sized sweet potato, maybe about 1.5 cups. I'm just going around and incorporating the sweet potato into those dry ingredients. I'm just pushing it in. At some point, when the sweet potato is almost all incorporated, I'm just going to go in there with my hands and start to mix it evenly. Now, it's important that sweet potatoes are still warm. They don't need to be hot, fresh out of the pot, but you want them to be warm. It seems to work better when they are still a little bit warm. And I'm just going to work all of that flour into the sweet potatoes. Let me just get a scraper. Scrape down the sides so I get every little last bit. I really don't like to waste anything when I'm making a recipe. All right, so you can see now that this is a nice, malleable dough. I'm going to put my bowl to the side, and I'm going to dust my chopping block here with a little bit of the cassava flour. And then I'm just going to roll that dough into a log. We'll give it maybe, trying to think, maybe about 7 or 8 inches long. And I'm going to divide that log in half, and then each half into thirds. So I have 6 equal pieces, more or less. We'll see how we did, later on when we have different sizes or the same sizes. So now you can see I have 6 pieces of the dough. I'm going to set 5 of those aside, and I'm going to heat up my pan. Now, normally I would use a cast iron skillet because I really like using the cast iron instead of a Teflon, but this is a non-stick. And it works really well because I'm not going to use oil. I'm just going to be pan frying these dry. So I have one of my little circles here, and I'm just going to flatten it out. You may find, and I find it's easy just to flatten it out by hand. Turn it over, flatten out again. I'm going to have maybe about a 6-inch tortilla here. If you want them bigger, then divide your batter into less pieces. If you want it smoother, more of a perfectly smooth surface, you can take a piece of parchment. So I have a piece of parchment here, and you can use a rolling pin. You could use a glass just to roll it out. And that will give you a nice, thin tortilla to work with. Now, tricky part. it kind of sticks to your cutting board. You could put a piece of parchment underneath, or I have found an easy way to do this is to I take 2 spatulas because they're big enough and I don't want it to break. And I'm just sliding these spatulas underneath. So I've loosened it. And I'm just going to take that now and transfer that to my skillet. 1, 2, 3, and slide it in. And that's it. So I'm going to let that heat up and start cooking. And while that's going on, you can continue with the rest of your tortillas. So I'll just do this until the first one's done, and then we can take a look at it. What I want to do is I want to see that my tortilla is starting to bubble. It'll start popping up, and hopefully we'll get to see it. Sometimes it doesn't do it as much as other times, but we'll give this a roll out with our parchment. But what's nice about this, cassava and tapioca have a elasticity to it, very much like wheat flour. It's the gluten that's in wheat that gives it its stretchiness. Cassava does not have that, so it is naturally a gluten-free tortilla that we're making. And that's what I like. In addition to having the fiber, and which white processed flour does not. And the starch is a resistant starch, as I mentioned, which means that it doesn't go towards spiking our glycemic index. So it's a low glycemic food. All right. So here we have our second tortilla. Let's see how our first tortilla is doing. So you can see now it's in the pan. I'm gonna give it a flip. We'll see how it's doing. The first one doesn't tend to brown up as much as the subsequent ones. You can see how it looks here. I'm gonna give this a little bit more time to cook. I'm going to lift this one up, maybe get it out of the way, and do a third one. Once these are done, they get transferred onto a plate and then layered with either cotton towel in between or paper towel, or if you have a tortilla holder, let me show you the one I have. Like this, it keeps it nice and moist until you're ready to serve them. And it keeps them warm as well. All right, okay, we're starting to bubble up a little bit here. I'm gonna wait and see whether it rises a little bit more to show you. In the meantime, I'll make another. So I hope you try these. They are very satisfying and delicious. The sweet potato gives it a little bit of a different flavor than what you might be used to, which is fun. I'm gonna add a little bit more of my flour here so things don't stick. The other thing too is if you have too much flour on your tortillas and they end up in your pan, the flour starts to burn. So you'll want to clear the flour out in between the tortillas that you're making. Like this one, if you can see, has more flour on it. And that might get left behind in the pan, which then burns and blackens, and I don't want to have that blackness on my tortillas. So I might take a paper towel or a cloth and wipe out the pan in between. All right, this is starting to bubble up now. I'm going to give it a minute more and then I'll show you. In the meantime, I'm going to roll out my third tortilla here. All right, this one's a little bit bigger, so I guess I didn't do all my circles evenly. Sometimes you might get a little bit that sticks on. I just put it right back and tap it into place. All right. Loosen this one up, set it to the side. Now, if you have more than one pan, you can do a few at a time and get this process going more quickly. All right, so now hopefully you can see it's bubbling up. I'm gonna flip it again so you can see how nice and toasted it is. Isn't that great? Awesome. All right, let me grab a plate, and I'm going to put this one onto a plate, and I'm going to show you again how I transferred. Let's take this one, all right, that's right front and center here. Put that right in. Got a little crack there, so I'm just fixing it. All right, while that one is cooking, let me clean my surface here. I'm going to save that flour for later so I can finish with the rest of my tortillas later on. But I thought I would show you how you might want to use these. And one way would be just to make a sandwich for lunch, right? So here we have our tortilla. Smells delicious, like baking bread. I have a little bit of black bean hummus that's left over from my Super Bowl party. I'm going to use that like mayo on the tortilla. Just like so. And I have some chickpea salad. Chickpeas, again, I use the chickpea flour. Now I'm adding in the chickpeas with a little bit of parsley, has a little bit of tuna in it, so I'm getting some protein from that. I've got fiber and protein from the chickpeas, as well as all those vitamins and minerals that are found in legumes. All right, there we have it. I'm gonna layer a few scallions on. And maybe just a pinch of cilantro. I have a little bit here. So let's add in a pinch of cilantro on there. And there you have it. So, the best part though is in the eating, right? Shall we try it? I wish I could share this with you. Oh my goodness. But what I wanted to show you is it is very durable. It won't fall apart. It won't crack. Oh, that's so satisfying. And if, like me, you have gotten away from grains, this is a fabulous way to make a tortilla lunch. So I hope you try these. Please let me know. As I said, you can do it with the butternut squash, which gives you a little bit of variety with what you're doing. Before I forget, let's flip our tortilla. See how that's doing. All right, you can see on this one, I'm already getting the browning. I've got a little bit of flour in there, so after this one, I'm going to wipe down the pan. But as I was saying, you can use butternut squash as well instead of the sweet potato. So if you have butternut squash, I just cubed it and steamed it for 20 minutes, and it worked beautifully. That's what the original tortillas that I had from this morning were made from. And as you can see, they look very similar. And they're still nice and flexible. As you can see, I store them with some cloth on top so that they stay moist and they don't dry out. And before we go, I just want to show you how this is bubbling up. Hopefully you can see that. It's a good example. So until next week, please stay well, stay healthy, eat well, and I will see you next Tuesday, and it won't be in my kitchen. I'm giving you a hint. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week. If you have any questions, please Add your comments in the comment box and I will get back to you. Take care now. Bye-bye.